Okay, everybody can hear. Hi, I'm Lawrie Phipps. I'm from an organisation called JISC. JISC is an organisation in the UK that provides the internet to every college and every university. We also have other elements that we do. My role is to work across different universities to help develop digital skills in staff, whether they're academics or in professional services. First of all, thank you for inviting me and for bringing me out to speak at the conference. And also, I want to say that the things that I'm going to say today are in my context. They're in the context of the UK, and I'm not here to say that this is the way that you should do it. I'm only here to give lessons from what we've learned and some of the mistakes that we've made, and hopefully you can look at those and say, well, we might take some of that, but that thing doesn't apply. So I'm not here to tell you anything that you should do. I've been working in this particular area for around 12 years, and I've run about 250 projects across different universities in the UK, over 100 of the UK universities, around about £35 million worth of projects that we've developed in different universities. The projects that I've run range from doing things at a strategic level with senior managers through to the administration, efficiency, but mostly I've been working at the practice level with academic staff and praxis, and looking at how practice impacts on the structure of academic culture. Currently, I'm running digital leadership programs for university leaders, and I also run digital capabilities materials and courses for academic teaching staff. What I want to talk about are the lessons that we've learned from running some of these projects and some of these lessons. So I'm not going to go into any great depth, and I know that I've probably got limited time. I've been very impressed with the timekeeping and the chairing at the event so far. So I'm going to be as brief as I can to give the final speaker enough time. So the lessons that we've learned from what we've done so far. When it comes to embedding digital teaching, and I'm not talking about open and online, I'm talking about just getting the digital into what we do in institutions. One of the key things that we've found is that the greater the dissonance between the rhetoric of a strategy, whether that's an education strategy or a digital strategy, and the practice in the classroom, the higher the likelihood of failure. What do I mean by that? If you've got an education strategy and it says things like this, does this look familiar to what might be an education strategy in an Indian university? These sorts of things may be in there. So innovative teaching, inclusive curriculum, an excellent student experience. These are the sorts of words and phrases that we have in UK universities, and I've got a colleague here who's nodding, so I'm feeling quite good. When we talk to academic staff, when we talk to teachers about what does innovative mean, what does inclusion mean, and what does an excellent student experience look like, when the senior manager writes a strategy and it gets published on the university website, academics then go, okay, but do they change practice? What does it look like for somebody who's teaching 25 hours a week when you say, could you tell me how you have an excellent student experience? So this is what I mean when I talk about the distance between the rhetoric of what a senior manager writes in an institution and what is understood by that by administrators. And the greater the distance between those two things, the more likely it is that it will fail. The next thing that we found when we worked with institutions is that mandating technology is not the same as supporting teaching practice. When we tell academic staff to use more digital and we mandate you will use digital, that's not the same as supporting them in their teaching practice. And it's not the same as embedding digital either. Let me give you an example. Do we all have learning management systems? Yeah, so all universities in the UK have learning management systems. And this is the kind of thing that a senior manager would say in a university. We must make the most of our investment in the learning management system. And sometimes that's millions of pounds. So what we end up doing is we do this. And we say, we will have a minimum standard for the LMS. It will have a module outline on it. It will have student handouts and the PowerPoints on it. It will have assessment schedules, contact details, and it might have some recommended readings. And so making the most of our LMS in a lot of universities in the UK, when we say we're going to have a minimum standard, looks like this. If you set a minimum standard for all of your staff will achieve that minimum standard. And a lot of them will not go beyond that minimum standard. So the minimum standard becomes the only digital that you see. And we see this across the UK. At the best, at the most optimistic, what we see is this is what's visible. And academics actually go off and they do things that the university doesn't know about online. That's me being optimistic. For a lot of staff, if they're told they must do the minimum standard, then that's the minimum standard. And the importance of staff comes through in all of the digital projects that we've done. Digital capabilities of staff involved in any change are at the heart of that change. So can the staff actually use the tools that we're doing? So in the UK, we have a framework. I don't know if people can see this. This is being used across most of the UK now in higher and further education, all post-16. And we have this framework, and you can see it's made up of 6 elements. At the core of this is ICT proficiency. We get staff to the level of can they actually use a computer? We include things like Microsoft Word and Excel and all of those simple packages as part of ICT proficiency. That should be the minimum standard, that all staff can do that. Underpinning all of the elements are staff understanding about their own digital identity, their own brand, their own well-being, and how they portray themselves online. Because most academics have now got some kind of visibility online. And then around this, these other 4 elements, they might change depending on the subject. A scientist might do more around information, data, and media literacies. An artist might do more around data creation and problem solving. But all of those components have got some part of an academic in the UK's life. And so we actually have a tool that we use, and you can actually measure yourself against the tool, and it gives you resources to go and develop it further. If people are interested, I can post that online. It's free to use, and you can all use that if you wish. Use it with your staff. So the idea that we build the staff and build the digital capabilities in staff is so that we can embed a sense of criticality in students' use. How do students use digital? Because students model the behaviours of what they see their tutors doing. I know that we've talked a lot about millennials and digital natives, but what we find is that students come to university, and yes, they can work their smartphones, but are they using them with criticality? Are they looking at the tools and thinking about, well, how do I use it in the context of my work, and how do I use it in the context of what I do at university? It's not the same as playing games. It's not the same as using WhatsApp to chat with your friends. So it doesn't talk about, well, what does their identity look like? So having the staff model those behaviours, and also getting staff talking to them at an early stage about data analytics, about algorithms, about intellectual property rights, and about how they protect their data is really important at universities. So we need to embed those skills in staff so that they can be embedded in our students. How many leaders are in the room? How many people are in a management role in the institution? So I apologise if you don't do digital. What we find in UK universities is that the greater the distance between the digital practices of senior managers and the practices that they expect in their academics, the harder it is to get digital change. We can't tell staff to change if we're not willing to engage and do it ourselves. I could say now that probably most senior managers in the universities that I work with have probably not taken a MOOC. They probably haven't experienced what it's like to be online learners. In fairness, most senior managers in the UK look like me, a little bit older, and they probably have staff that actually engage online for them and even do their emails for them. So it's very difficult to get a different perspective and to get staff to engage in digital practices if you don't do it yourself. So it's important that digital leadership actually brings people along with them. Any digital change in the universities, especially in the UK, have to start with people. You have to start with the culture and invest in how people engage with what it is that you're trying to do, what it is your aspirations are. So most of the work that we do with the digital leadership courses that we do actually don't talk to staff about how to use the tools. Most of the work is about looking at the underlying assumptions about education, looking at the underlying assumptions about how they view students, and starting from the point of what is it that you want to achieve with your students, what is it that you want to achieve with your research, because we work across research as well, and asking them, okay, what are the tools that we can look at to actually make that happen? What are the changes that we need to put in place to make digital actually happen in the universities, rather than saying, here is the technology, go away and use it. We don't actually get very far when we give staff technology and say, make it happen. We have to put in place all of those other things to make it happen first. These are the things that we've done and that we've learned in the UK. If you want to get in touch with me for the slides or for any other details and papers, you can actually get hold of me on Twitter or drop me an email. This is funny. My organisation has gone paperless and we don't actually have business cards. But on the slides that they give me a picture of a business card. So yes. So thank you very much.